Karen, what can you tell us about this sort of cat and mouse game between journalists and Corby's security detail that recently played out?
Well, it goes on still today. It's afternoon on Sunday here in Australia. Corby arrived in Brisbane this morning. She travelled with her sister who lives in Bali, but when her sister arrived at their mother's home in Brisbane, she was without Schapelle. So they are leading the media on a chase. There was a decoy convoy of black SUVs. It's not clear whether she has actually entered the house dressed as someone else or whether she's gone to a hotel. There are a number of friends who've arrived wearing masks, Halloween masks. People inside the house are filming the media, so it's very much still a cat and mouse game. There are issues of whether or not Schapelle Corby might have signed some kind of deal with a publicist, but she is subject to the provisions of proceeds of crime law here in Australia that would restrict her from profiting from anything any arrangement she might make with media, because she is a convicted drug smuggler.
So, Karen, this case has gripped the country for more than 10 years. Why are people so captivated?
Well, it divided the community because a lot of people didn't believe she was guilty. She said in the beginning, from the beginning, that she wasn't guilty. She was arrested in 2004, October 2004, with a boogie board bag with 4.2 kilograms of marijuana in it. She'd flown from Australia to Bali. She said it wasn't hers. The Indonesian court found that it was and sentenced her to 20 years in jail. Now, she argued that marijuana was placed in her bag, possibly by a baggage handler or somebody else in the process of travelling from Australia. So she's always said she didn't do it, and a number of people in Australia believe her. In fact, she sparked an entire new industry in securing people's luggage. Now, when you go to an Australian airport to fly, particularly to Indonesia, you can get your bags wrapped in plastic to make sure no one can tamper with them. That was a direct result of this case. So a lot of people believe that she didn't do it. It was quite divisive, and we still see the interest in this case this many years afterwards. She spent 9 years in prison in Indonesia. She had a 20-year sentence originally, 9 years in prison after that sentence was reduced, but another 3 years living in a villa with her sister on parole in Indonesia, and the provisions of her release were that she had to leave the country on the 27th of May 2017.
And what about foreign relations? How has her case affected relations between Australia and Indonesia?
Well, there's a lot of sensitivity in Australia about the Indonesian judicial system. She's not the only Australian to have been arrested on drugs charges. In fact, we saw 2 Australians executed just 12 months ago on drugs charges in Indonesia as part of a group now known as the Bali 9, who were convicted of smuggling drugs also through Bali. Now, she is fortunate in some respects that she wasn't arrested a few years after she was, because the death penalty has been much more firmly enforced in recent years in Indonesia. So Australians have a degree of sensitivity about the judicial system in Indonesia, and particularly about drug smuggling, and also the question of the death penalty. So the Australians pay quite a close attention to the way the judicial system plays out. And Bali is an Australian tourist playground. Australian tourists go there in huge numbers every year, and people pay close attention for that reason too. There are a lot of Australians travelling there every day, and people sometimes forget that Bali is part of Indonesia, and they have quite strict laws, particularly in relation to drugs.
Karen Middleton for us from Canberra. Thank you for that.